What happens when three royal children approach a simple ice cream cart on a sunny afternoon? Most would expect a quick photo op, nothing more. But what Charlotte, George, and Louis did next wasn't just sweet, it was genuinely moving. Their unexpected gesture of kindness reminded the world what true nobility really means. Can childhood innocence, paired with a royal upbringing, create something truly magical? Stay with us, because what unfolded that afternoon was more than a charming moment. It was a memory that touched hearts and brought a village together. It began on a golden summer morning. The sun cast warm rays across the English countryside. As families gathered for the annual village fair, it was one of those perfect days that beckoned everyone outdoors, the sky a brilliant blue, the breeze light and scented with blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. Children darted between brightly colored stalls, balloons bobbing at their wrists, cotton candy clinging to their fingers. Behind them, parents smiled and snapped photos, savoring every sun-drenched moment. The village square had transformed into a storybook scene. Striped red and white tents lined the cobbled paths, overflowing with handmade crafts, buttery pastries, and cheerful vendors waving at every passing child. Near the fountain, folk band played gentle tunes while face painters worked their magic on giggling toddlers. Laughter, conversation, and the hum of a close-knit community filled the air. Neighbors reconnected over jam tastings. Elderly couples watched from shaded benches, memories of their own youth reflected in the games being played nearby. Local artisans displayed their finest wares with pride, hoping to catch the attention of curious newcomers. Into this joyful scene, the royal family quietly arrived. No grand entrance, no fanfare, no barriers. Just Prince William and Catherine, strolling hand in hand with their children. Enjoying the afternoon like any other family, Charlotte skipped ahead in a light blue dress, her braids threaded with tiny white ribbons that shimmered in the sun. George walked with a quiet maturity, occasionally reaching out to steady and enthusiastic Louis, whose wide eyes and eager energy made it hard for him to stand still. And then, something unexpected happened. Something small, yet unforgettable. Louis bounced happily between his siblings, pointing excitedly at every new discovery that caught his wide-eyed curiosity. The royal family moved through the fair with a relaxed grace, blending into the scene as naturally as the breeze rustling through the tents. They paused to admire hand-carved wooden toys, sampled sun-warmed strawberries from a local farm stand, and laughed along with a puppet show that had Louis clapping in delight. Onlookers offered warm smiles and polite waves, but mostly allowed the family the rare gift of privacy to simply be. Because royal children rarely get to just be children. Most of their public appearances come with stiff outfits, formal behavior, and camera lenses capturing every blink and breath. But this sunny afternoon was something else entirely. This was real childhood, unfolding in the moment. And it was beautiful to watch. Charlotte, George, and Louis explored the fair with the kind of carefree joy every child deserves. They weren't heirs or titles today, they were just three kids soaking in a world of bright colors, cheerful noise, and delightful smells. George, now old enough to carry the quiet weight of being the eldest, he still couldn't hide his excitement when they passed a booth selling miniature wooden airplanes. His eyes lit up as he leaned in close, asking thoughtful questions about how they were made. The vendor, clearly charmed by his curiosity, enthusiastically walked him through each detail. Charlotte, ever graceful and curious, wandered over to a flower-crowned stall. An elderly woman sat weaving daisies and baby's breath into delicate circles with nimble, practiced hands. Charlotte watched in awe, her head tilting as she studied each twist and knot. The woman noticed her interest, gave a warm smile, and gently showed her how to craft her own crown. Moments later, Charlotte beamed with pride. The finished piece perched perfectly atop her braided hair. Meanwhile, Louis, youngest and bursting with energy, found magic in everything. He chased butterflies along garden paths, picked up smooth pebbles to tuck into his pockets, and made fast friends with a golden retriever whose tail thumped the ground like a drum. His laugh echoed across the fairgrounds, bright, loud, and impossible not to smile at. William and Catherine followed their children with quiet joy, letting their curiosity lead the way. They chatted warmly with local artisans, complimented volunteers, and looked entirely at ease, lost in the rare delight of an unstructured day. And then, at the far end of the fairgrounds, something caught the children's eyes, something small, yet utterly enchanting. A pastel-colored ice cream cart sat in the shade of a great oak tree, its cheerful bunting fluttering in the breeze. Hand-painted signs advertised flavors like strawberry swirl, vanilla dream, and chocolate fudge surprise. Behind the cart stood a jolly man in a flour-dusted apron, his kind eyes twinkling as he scooped generous servings into waffle cones for a growing line of happy customers. Charlotte saw it first. Her eyes widened and she gently tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing toward the cart with a look of pure, unfiltered excitement, the kind only ice cream can bring. George and Louis quickly followed her gaze, and suddenly, all three children turned toward their parents with hopeful smiles and wordless, pleading eyes. What happened next would become the moment no one could forget, the moment that turned a sunny afternoon into something extraordinary. Catherine exchanged a quiet, knowing glance with William. This wasn't on any schedule or royal itinerary, but some of the most memorable moments in life aren't planned. With a warm smile and a subtle nod, she gave the children her blessing to explore this new adventure. And just like that, they were off. Each of the siblings approached the ice cream cart in their own distinct way. George moved forward with thoughtful steps, already weighing his flavor options with the seriousness of someone twice his age. Charlotte bounced with barely contained excitement, her eyes wide as they scanned the handwritten signs listing flavors. Louis dashed ahead, then circled back, then darted forward again, his energy a blur of joy and anticipation. Families nearby smiled at the sight. It was rare to see the royal children in such a relatable moment. No photographers, no royal wave, just three kids dreaming about ice cream on a summer afternoon. It was something simple, yet deeply human. Behind the cart stood Henry, kindly man with silver at his temples, and smile lines that had grown deeper over the years. For more than 2 decades, Henry had served everyone from muddy-booted farmers to ribbon-wearing mayors with the same cheerful professionalism. He recognized the royal family instantly, but didn't falter. He treated them no differently than he would any other customer, polite, warm, and welcoming. A few feet away, unnoticed by most, stood a young mother named Sarah and her 3-year-old daughter Emma. Sarah's tired eyes followed the line at the cart, her mind juggling numbers, groceries, rent, gas. After her husband's accident 6 months earlier, every expense had to be carefully measured. Ice cream, once a simple treat, was now an unaffordable luxury. Emma didn't understand budgeting or bills. She just saw other children enjoying scoops of cold, creamy joy and wanted the same. Her small fingers tugged gently at her mother's sleeve. "Mummy, can I have some too?" Sarah knelt beside her daughter and spoke softly, choosing words that were honest but kind. "Not today, sweetheart. We're saving for important things, remember?" Emma nodded with the quiet acceptance that only small children can give, trying to understand adult problems without truly grasping them. Still, her gaze lingered on the cart, on the children happily licking their cones. Other parents noticed, but hesitated. It was a delicate moment. No one wanted to intrude, but many silently wished they could help. There's a fine line between generosity and preserving someone's dignity, and for a long moment no one quite knew what to do. But then Charlotte noticed. While George and Louis were still deep in discussion about chocolate versus vanilla, Charlotte's gaze drifted toward the edge of the crowd. She saw Emma clinging to her mother's leg, and the way Sarah's hand gently stroked her daughter's hair, offering comfort where words couldn't. At just 9 years old, Charlotte had an uncanny sensitivity at quiet, emotional intelligence that allowed her to read a room in a way many adults couldn't. She understood, apt. Without needing to ask what was happening, she turned to George, nudging his arm and motioning subtly toward the mother and child. He looked over and immediately understood. Protective instinct that came with being the oldest kicked in. He didn't need an explanation, either did Louis, who had paused his bouncing long enough to sense the shift in mood. No words were exchanged. Just a series of glances, nods, and the kind of silent agreement that only siblings can manage. They had been raised to understand their position in the world not with arrogance, but with compassion. Privilege, they had been taught, is only meaningful when used to lift others. Together, they stepped back from the front of the line. George approached Henry, leaning in and quietly whispering something. Henry's eyes flicked to where Sarah and Emma stood, and he gave a slow, warm smile and nodded. Charlotte skipped over to Emma with a soft hello, crouching to her level and offering the small daisy crown she had made earlier. Emma's face lit up. George arrived next, holding 2 dripping cons, one in each hand, and offered one to the little girl. Louis followed behind, proudly presenting a paper napkin and saying, quite seriously, in case it gets messy. Sarah's eyes welled with tears, but she managed a grateful smile. He didn't have to, but we wanted to, Charlotte said simply. Still holding Emma's hand, William and Catherine watched from a short distance, their expressions quiet but proud. They didn't intervene, they didn't orchestrate. They simply let the moment unfold. And for those who witnessed it, that summer afternoon would never be forgotten, not because of titles, or photographs, or grand gestures, but because 3 young children saw a need and responded with kindness, compassion, and quiet courage. Sometimes, it's not the grand acts that define us, but the small ones that ripple outward in ways you never expect. Catherine watched closely as her children observed the young girl and her mother. You recognized the expression on their faces, that familiar spark of quiet determination that always emerged when they sensed someone in need. It was a look she had seen before, in small moments at shelters, hospitals, and schools. And once again, she chose not to intervene. She trusted them, curious to see how they would navigate this on their own. Henry, the ice cream vendor, had also noticed. He'd seen the mother and daughter lingering nearby, the little girl's longing gaze fixed on the cart, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress. As a grandfather himself, he felt the same pull to help, but like many, he hesitated, unsure how to do so without causing embarrassment or discomfort. Quietly, he hoped someone might step forward. Charlotte did, with the grace and gentleness far beyond her 9 years. She approached not with fanfare, but with compassion. She didn't walk up holding a cone or speaking in a loud voice. Instead, she crouched down beside Emma and simply said hello, her voice calm and clear. I love your dress, she said with a smile. And your bunny, is that her favorite toy? Emma blinked, surprised but intrigued. Her grip tightened on the small, well-loved rabbit. But something in Charlotte's warmth helped her find her voice. She's called Bella, Emma whispered. Shyly, George and Louis joined their sister, their natural energy softening into playful curiosity. George offered a gentle joke about how he once accidentally put his own toy in the fridge, which made Emma giggle. Louis made a goofy face and introduced himself by holding out a slightly sticky hand. Emma laughed harder. Sarah watched, speechless. Her daughter, usually quiet with strangers, was beaming, fully engaged in a cheerful conversation with 3 children she'd only ever seen on television. But they weren't acting like royalty, they were just being kind. After a few minutes, Charlotte stood and walked back to the cart with new resolve in her stride. She spoke quietly to Henry, gesturing back toward Emma and Sarah, as she explained. Henry's expression changed. His eyes softened, smile deepened. Charlotte's idea was simple, beautifully so. She asked Henry if she and her brothers could pay for Emma's ice cream. But more than that, she wanted to pay for any other children whose families might be quietly struggling. We noticed she looked sad, Charlotte explained. We thought maybe other children felt the same, but didn't say anything. Henry was deeply moved. He'd been in business a long time, but moments like this reminded him why he stayed. Without hesitation, he offered to match the children's generosity, providing ice cream, free of charge, to any family that needed it that day. And just like that, something magical happened. What began as a small act of kindness became the most talked about moment of the entire fair. A quiet collaboration between 3 royal children and a humble ice cream man sparked a ripple of generosity that spread through the village like sunshine. Charlotte, George and Louis returned to Emma, their arms full of colorful cones. Charlotte, gently handed her a strawberry swirl with rainbow sprinkles. "Thought you might like to try this one," she said. "It's our favorite." Emma's face lit up like morning. Her smile was pure, uninhibited joy. She squealed in delight, clutching her cone with both hands and looking up at her new friends with wide, grateful eyes. Sarah stood still, overwhelmed. Tears welled in her eyes, not out of pity or sadness, but because her daughter was happy, truly, blissfully happy. And the kindness that had made it possible had been offered with such grace, with no show or pity, just a simple, heartfelt gesture. It felt like friendship, not charity. But the children weren't done yet. As more families began to hear what had happened, hesitant parents stepped forward, some with quiet questions, others with visible emotion. And each time, Henry greeted them with a smile and a scoop, explaining it was already taken care of. A gift from 3 little heroes. As he later put it, Charlotte and George took turns helping Henry serve cones to new children in line, while Louis ran back and forth handing out napkins and letting toddlers at a toy rabbit he'd borrowed from Emma. What began as a single moment between 2 families had now become a community-wide celebration of kindness and inclusion. The air, sweet with summer, seemed even warmer, now thick with gratitude, joy, and the kind of magic that only exists when people look out for one another. And somewhere, quietly watching from the edge of the crowd, Catherine and William smiled. Not because their children had done something extraordinary, but because they had done something good, something that mattered. They had noticed other families, to quiet figures on the fringes of joy, doing their best to hide want behind polite smiles. Without fanfare, the royal children worked with Henry to ensure those children received treats as well. They moved through the fair like gentle ambassadors of joy, tuned to the small signs others might miss. Hesitant glances, downcast eyes, tightened grips on empty pockets. George showed remarkable wisdom beyond his years. With older kids, those at the age where pride and self-consciousness run high, he never offered help directly. Instead, he struck up casual conversations about soccer or school, drawing them in as equals before saying, "Let's grab an ice cream together," as if it had been the plan all along. Louis, despite being the youngest, carried himself with careful purpose. He helped hand out treats with a focus rarely seen in children his age, treating each cone as if it were a personal gift. He made sure no child felt like a charity, only like a welcome part of the moment. Word spread quickly through the fair. But instead of becoming a spectacle, something even better happened. It sparked a movement. Families who had watched the royal children's kindness felt compelled to do the same. Parents opened picnic baskets and shared their extra snacks with strangers. Vendors, moved by the gesture, began slipping free sweets and trinkets to children lingering at their booths. What had begun as a simple act of compassion became a chain reaction that wrapped the entire fair in warmth. The atmosphere shifted. What had been a lovely community event transformed into something rare, something magical. An elderly craftswoman, moved to tears, began handing out her handmade wooden toys to any child who smiled at her booth. A teenage volunteer at the face painting station stopped charging altogether, painting hearts, butterflies, and pirate beards on every waiting child. The spirit of giving spread like sunlight after rain. Sarah, once standing quietly on the edge, now found herself surrounded by new friends. Her adder parents who had witnessed what happened and wanted to offer support. Emma wasn't just eating ice cream anymore. She was wearing a flower crown, clutching a balloon animal, skipping hand in hand with 2 new playmates she'd met near the puppet show. She had come to the fair with only her mother, and was leaving with a full heart and unforgettable memories. Catherine and William watched it all unfold, with quiet pride. They didn't call attention to their children's actions, nor did they allow others to turn the moment into a photo opportunity. They understood the true beauty of what had happened lay in its spontaneity, in the sincerity of the gestures, not in the headlines they might create. The royal family lingered at the fair for another hour, not as guests of honor, but as participants, in a shared moment of humanity. And just when it seemed the day couldn't offer anything more, one final surprise sealed its legacy. As families began to pack up, blankets folded and tired children gathered into arms, Henry stood atop a wooden crate near his ice cream cart and raised his voice. Starting next month, said I'll be setting aside one day as Kindness Day. On that day, ice cream will be free for any child whose family needs it now. Questions asked. The crowd erupted into applause, many wiping away tears. Henry, usually a man of few words, beamed as he continued. I've been running this cart for 20 years. Today reminded me why I started to bring joy to kids and a little sweetness to the world. He wasn't alone. The flower crown vendor declared she'd always keep a few crowns free for children who couldn't afford them. The toy maker pledged a portion of his sales to support local families. The puppet troupe announced they'd perform for free at schools in less affluent neighborhoods. Charlotte, George, and Louis listened with growing wonder. It only wanted to make one little girl feel happy. Instead, their kindness had inspired an entire village. As they prepared to leave, families came up to thank them. But the children, with quiet humility, smiled and insisted everyone help today. It wasn't just us. Their maturity in deflecting praise only deepened the admiration of those around them. Just before they climbed into the family car, Emma came running one last time, her cheeks sticky, her flower crown tilted slightly, her arms full of memories. She hugged each of them in turn, Louis first, then George, then Charlotte. Thank you for being my friends, she whispered. Her mother, Sarah, could barely speak through her tears. It didn't just give her ice cream, she finally managed. You gave her a perfect day. And as the sun dipped low over the rolling hills, casting golden light across the fairgrounds, the image of 4 children hugging goodbye became the lasting symbol of the day, a moment when joy was shared, dignity preserved, and kindness passed from heart to heart. Not because they were royal, but because they were kind. The story of what happened at the village fair didn't stay in the village for long. Photos and short video clips shared online captured something rare: royalty not through ceremony, but through compassion. The world watched as 3 young royal children stepped into their privilege, not as a shield, but as a bridge. They didn't pose for the cameras. They didn't deliver rehearsed speeches. They simply saw a need and responded with open hearts. Reaction was immediate and widespread. People from around the world commented on how refreshing it was to see young royals acting with such genuine kindness. Headlines called it a masterclass in empathy. Social media lit up with praise, not for grand gestures, but for quiet humanity. Educators applauded William and Catherine for raising children with strong values and deep emotional intelligence. Child psychologists pointed out the power of the moment. 3 siblings working together as a team, each contributing something unique. Charlotte's empathy, George's quiet leadership, Louis's wholehearted joy. What struck people most wasn't just what the children did, but how they did it, thoughtfully, humbly, naturally. And it didn't stop there. All across the UK and beyond, families, schools, and communities began to respond. Kindness initiatives sprang up in classrooms. Parent groups started organizing neighborhood support projects. Children began asking their parents, "How can I help someone today?" The ripple effect had begun. That simple afternoon at a village fair became something far greater, a living example of how influence, when paired with compassion, can transform not just moments, but entire mindsets. The royal children had shown the world what true nobility looks like. Not distant or untouchable, but grounded in service, empathy, and action. Many were reminded of Princess Diana, like their grandmother. Charlotte, George, and Louis displayed the rare ability to see individuals, not just crowds. Diana had once said she wanted to be a queen of people's hearts. That day at the fair, her legacy quietly lived on, not in titles or tributes, but in the small, powerful choice to help. William and Catherine's parenting had clearly created children who understood that privilege isn't something to hoard, it's something to share. They had raised leaders who saw kindness not as a duty, but as an opportunity. Their children carried their titles lightly, but wore their values proudly. For many who have questioned the future relevance of the monarchy, this moment offered something different: hope. Here were royal children connecting with ordinary as families, Not their obligation, but their instinct. They didn't wait to be told to act. They simply saw someone struggling and chose to help. They reminded the world that service can be simple, that leadership can look like a flower crown, a shared laugh, or a melting ice cream cone. That kindness doesn't need a spotlight to shine. 3 royal children, 1 ice cream cart, a village fair, and a moment that became a symbol of the kind of world we all want to live in. One where compassion is contagious. And even the smallest hands can spark the biggest change. Charlotte, George, and Louis offered something far greater than sweets. They offered their hearts, and in doing so, they reminded us that no one is too young or too important to care. Now it's your turn. What small act of kindness could you offer today to make someone's world a little sweeter? Share your thoughts below. Kindness begins with a single step.